The twin moons of the world, called Vorel, drifted across a bruised sky as the alien queen stood upon the shattered balcony of her palace. Her name was Lyra, and her armor was marked by the wounds of a war that should have ended long ago. In her hands she held a small beacon, a last hope for her people. The great towers of her once proud capital lay broken behind her. Fires glowed like open wounds, and the cries of the injured carried faintly through the ruins. Her army, though loyal, had been reduced to a fraction of its strength. Their foe, known only as the devouring tide, marched closer each hour. It consumed land, structures, and even memories, leaving behind hollow ground that echoed with silence. Her people believed the tide unstoppable. Lyra refused to surrender, yet she knew they could not endure another assault. So she recorded a message pleading for aid, not from nearby allies, for none remained, but from the endless void beyond her star system. She did not expect anyone to answer. Deep below the balcony, her commanders waited for her command. Among them stood Ryan, her most trusted general. He surveyed the broken skyline with a stern expression. His armor was scorched and dented, yet he remained upright with the resolve of one who refused to die before his duty was fulfilled. Lyra descended the ruined steps to join them. The gathered warriors saluted, though their movements were weary. She lifted the beacon. Its holographic surface flickered uncertainly, as if even the device was losing hope. Ryan stepped closer and asked if she was certain. Lyra replied that they had no other choice. She activated the beacon and sent the message across deep space. Her voice, though steady, carried the weight of desperation. She explained the threat of the tide, the losses her people had suffered, and the danger it posed to any world foolish enough to ignore it. She ended the plea with a vow that her people would stand with whoever answered, no matter the cost. When the transmission ended, silence stretched across the chamber. Her army looked to her with grim acceptance. They did not believe any help would come. Beyond their star system were countless civilizations, but most were isolationist or embroiled in their own conflicts. Lyra knew their fears were justified. The beacon broadcast through long-range channels that few monitored. She had sent her voice into an ocean of stars, where it would likely drown hours past. The sun dipped lower behind the ruined horizon. The ground shook as the tide advanced. Its presence was like a storm surge made of shifting black matter that swallowed structures as though they were sand. Scouts returned with grim news. The tide would reach the capital before dawn. Ryan advised evacuation, though he knew it would only delay the inevitable. Lyra refused. She would not abandon her people or the remains of her world. She ordered defensive lines prepared. Her army obeyed with heavy hearts. Barricades rose from rubble. Shield generators hummed weakly. The wounded were moved underground. Lyra walked among them, offering quiet encouragement. She touched the hands of children who clung to their parents. The sight deepened her resolve. Night settled over Vorel. The stars glimmered faintly through dust clouds left by the destruction. She looked toward the sky, hoping against all reason for an answer. Ryan approached and told her that no reply had been received. Lyra nodded slowly. Even so, she refused to regret her decision. A queen must do all that can be done. As she prepared to return to the defenses, the beacon blinked. She froze. Ryan stared in disbelief. A signal pulsed through the device. Not a random fluctuation, but a deliberate response. The message was short. It contained coordinates and a single statement. Help en route. Hold position. Lyra reread the message. The sender did not identify their faction or species. Their tone was direct and confident. Ryan suggested could be a trap. Lyra considered the possibility, yet sensed a sincerity in the message that touched something deep within her. She ordered preparations to continue. Whatever approached the system would reveal itself soon enough. If it was hostile, they would face it as they had faced everything else beyond the orbit of Vorel. Space shimmered as a vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel. The ship was angular and metallic with lines that suggested a design philosophy unfamiliar to Vorelian engineers. It bore no markings of known star powers. Inside the vessel stood a single human named Adam. He was not part of a grand fleet or a mighty empire. He was an explorer who traveled alone in a ship he maintained with stubborn determination. When he had received the distress signal, he had been repairing the vessel's power conduits. He could have ignored the message. Most wanderers would have. The universe was massive and filled with dangers. Yet something about the Queen's voice had compelled him. Her honesty, her courage, and her refusal to abandon her people stirred something noble within him. So he answered Dot as he approached Vorel. His sensors detected the devouring tide. Data streams filled his displays. The phenomenon was unlike anything he had encountered. It radiated energy signatures that resembled both biological activity and gravitational anomalies. He realized the threat was genuine and immense. He adjusted his flight path and accelerated toward the besieged capital. On the ground, Lyra and her army watched the sky. A streak of light descended through the clouds. The tide pressed closer, its dark mass rippling with hungry anticipation. Defenders braced themselves. Some whispered prayers. Others whispered farewells. The streak slowed, revealing a ship dropping carefully into the ruins. Dust billowed around it as it landed near the palace grounds. Ryan raised his weapon, but Lyra signaled him to hold. The ship's ramp lowered. A lone human stepped out. He wore worn yet durable armor. His posture was relaxed, though his eyes surveyed the battlefield with sharp focus. Lyra approached with her guards. She asked for his name. He replied simply, Adam. She asked what faction he represented. He shrugged. None. She did not understand at first. He explained that he traveled alone and that he had responded because someone needed help. The simplicity of his statement struck her harder than any grand declaration could. She studied him. He bore no insignia of rank or title. His ship was clearly old. He stood there without fear in the shadow of the approaching tide. Rian asked what assistance he could possibly provide alone. Adam smiled. He walked back up the ramp and returned with a device. It resembled a large emitter stabilized by modular supports. He set it onto the ground with practiced efficiency. Lyra asked what it was. Adam explained that it was a field disruptor capable of interfering with gravitational anomalies. He had built it during his travels after encountering spatial distortions near a collapsed star. He believed the device might destabilize the tide long enough to weaken it. There was little time to doubt. The tide reached the outer barricades. The ground vibrated like a drum. The first line of defenders opened fire. Energy blasts struck the tide, but vanished into its dark surface as though swallowed whole. Lyra ordered her troops to fall back to the secondary defenses. Adam activated the disruptor. Blue waves rippled outward across the battlefield. For the first time, the tide hesitated. Its surface wavered like disturbed water. The defenders saw the effect and regained courage. Adam increased the output. The device hummed with strain that the tide pushed forward again. It lashed outward with tendrils of dark matter. One tendril snapped toward Adam. Ryan intercepted and blocked with his energy shield. The impact threw him back, but he rose again with a roar. Lyra joined Adam at the disruptor. She asked how long it would hold. Adam admitted he did not know. He suggested drawing the tide toward a choke point where its mass could be concentrated for a stronger disruption. Lyra ordered her troops to lure the tide toward the collapsed western district where trenches and narrow paths formed natural corridors. The defenders retreated while firing coordinated volleys. The tide pursued, its dark form compressed into the corridors like a moving storm. Adam adjusted the device's frequency. The waves intensified. The tide convulsed violently. Pieces of its outer mass fractured into dust that dissolved into the air. Encouraged, Lyra ordered her army to press the advantage. They took up positions overlooking the corridor. Adam warned them to wait. He needed one final calibration. As the tide surged into the narrowest point, Adam triggered the disruptor's overload sequence. A deep resonance filled the air. Light surged upward from the device. The tide shrieked with an otherworldly sound that vibrated in everyone's bones. The disruption carved through its core. For a moment, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. Then the tide imploded. Its matter collapsed inward and vanished with a thunderous shockwave that knocked everyone off their feet. Silence followed. Dust drifted through the air like snow. Lyra rose slowly. She looked toward the corridor where the tide had once loomed. Nothing remained except faint shimmering traces fading into the night. The battle was over. The unstoppable force that had destroyed continents was gone. Ryan helped his queen stand. She looked to Adam. He leaned against the disruptor, breathing heavily but alive. She walked to him. Her army gathered behind her. She told him that he had saved their world. Adam shook his head and said he had only helped them finish what they had already begun. Lyra saw that he spoke without pride. He had risked everything not for glory, but because it was right. She felt admiration swell in her chest. Her people approached him with gratitude. Many bowed. Adam grew embarrassed, but endured their thanks. Lyra ordered that he be brought into the palace to rest. He declined at first, but she insisted. She explained that her people owed him more than mere words. He agreed reluctantly. Inside the palace, servants lit surviving lamps to brighten the shattered chambers. Medical staff tended to his wounds. He watched the alien architecture with curiosity. Lyra sat beside him. She asked why he had come when others had ignored their plea. Adam replied that traveling alone through the stars taught him a simple truth. When someone calls for help, someone should answer. Lyra considered his answer carefully. Humanity was far from her world, yet this lone human had shown the courage of an entire fleet. The next morning the sun rose over Vorel. For the first time in many cycles, it rose without fear. Smoke lifted gently from the ruins, but the sense of doom had vanished. Her people began repairs. The quiet hum of relief filled the air. Adam walked among them, helping lift debris and repair damaged structures. He worked with a steady calm. Many were surprised that a being from another world labored beside them as though he had always belonged there. Lyra observed him from the palace steps. She felt a strange warmth in her chest. She approached him and told him that her world owed him a debt beyond repayment. He replied that he did not come for payment. She smiled at his humility. She asked what he planned to do next. He said he would repair his ship and continue his travels. She paused and asked if he would remain a little longer. Her people wished to honor him, and she hoped he might consider staying until the capital was fully restored. Adam agreed. During the following days, Adam worked with Ryan and the palace, engineers to adapt the disruptor technology for defensive infrastructure. The Queen attended the planning sessions. She grew to value Adam's direct manner. He never spoke down to anyone. He treated everyone from commanders to children with the same quiet respect. Lyra admired that quality deeply. One evening, as the sun set across the rebuilding city, Adam stood on the rebuilt balcony where Lyra had once sent her desperate plea. She joined him. The wind carried the scent of new growth where the land had begun to heal. She thanked him again. Adam replied that he had only been the one to answer. But Lyra corrected him gently. He had not only answered, he had become the symbol of hope that would shape their future. She said her world would remember the day a lone human came through the sky and stood with them. He looked at her for a long moment. He said he had never expected to find a place where he felt needed. She told him that he was needed here more than he knew. Silence settled between them, but it was peaceful. Below them, the people of Vorel gathered in the streets. Ryan called out an announcement. The queen approached the balcony rail, and Adam stood beside her. The citizens cheered for their queen and for the human who had saved them. Lyra lifted her hand in salute. Adam followed after a moment. Their silhouettes framed by the setting sun became a symbol of unity. Between two worlds, the celebration lasted through the night. Music rose through the streets. Lanterns floated into the sky. Children ran with joy. Warriors who had once expected death now embraced life again. Adam walked among them, feeling a sense of belonging he had not known for years. Lyra walked beside him. She introduced him to elders and healers and artisans. His name spread quickly through the crowd. When dawn came again, Adam stood beside his ship preparing to depart. Lyra approached him with calm purpose. She asked if he was certain he wished to leave. Adam said his journey was endless. He must continue forward. She nodded, though disappointment flickered in her eyes. She told him that Vorel's beacons would always be open to him. He promised to return one day. She stepped closer and thanked him once more, not as a queen, but as someone whose world had been saved by a stranger who chose to care. Adam smiled. He boarded his ship. The engines ignited. The vessel rose into the air. As it ascended, Lyra placed her hand over her heart. Ryan stood beside her. He said quietly that the human would return. She agreed. The ship became a bright streak in the morning sky. Her people watched it rise until it vanished among the stars. Lyra turned toward her rebuilt city. She felt renewed purpose. Her people would heal. They would rise stronger. And somewhere out there, a lone human traveled the galaxy, carrying the hope he had given them. On worlds far beyond Vorel, legends began to spread. Tales of a queen who pleaded for aid when all seemed lost. Tales of a monstrous tide that consumed everything. And at the heart of the tale was the moment when the stars answered in the form of one human who dared to help when no one else would. It became a story told around fires and in great halls. A reminder that even in the vast silence of the universe, one voice can be heard and one person can change the fate of an entire world. Lyra stood again on the balcony as the night settled over her recovering city. She looked up at the stars. She whispered a quiet oath that her world would never forget the lesson taught by the human named Adam, that courage needs no army, that hope needs no title, and that even in the darkest hour someone may answer if a voice is brave enough to call. She turned from the balcony with renewed strength. Her world had survived. A human had reminded them why. And across the infinite expanse of stars, he continued his journey, carrying with him the gratitude of a queen and the future of a world reborn.